Hello, hello, and welcome to Relatable Bitches podcast. I'm your host, Heinna.
And I'm your host, Marj. We're so excited to have you here with us today.
This is the space where we will dive into all the messy, beautiful, and totally relatable aspects of life. From family and friends to career struggles and everything in between. We're here to keep it real and have some fun.
That's right. Our goal is to create a community where we can laugh, cry, and feel understood. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's get into today's episode. Any personal stories or experiences shared on this podcast are unique to the individuals involved and should not be considered universal or applicable to all situations.
Welcome everybody to Relatable Bitches podcast. We have a special guest here today. We have Rimsha. So we're excited to welcome her because she is our special guest and a remarkable holistic intimacy and relationship coach with an extraordinary journey. Born and raised in Pakistan, she once believed that love is beyond her reach, feeling unworthy due to the past experiences of abuse. Her path is to self discovery and healing has been nothing short of transformative. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for your patience of our lovely technical difficulties. But again, this is something that's part of our journey of learning inside. But thank you so much. That's why we have wonderful guests like you that has the patience of a goddess to be, they're almost 30 minutes in and still trying to figure it out. But thank you so much. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. And no worries, I've done this podcast thing, and the tech is always the fun exploration.
Yeah,
Keeps you
yeah.
on
And
your
then when
toes.
yeah, and then when the internet is, a little not to the
Mhm.
bandwidth that we need. So, but thank you so much for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
welcome. We'd love to know maybe share about where you're at right now, and just that we can kind of go forward from there.
Yeah, so I'm currently in Bali, Indonesia, and then I'll be in Thailand next week, and then really start. I'm currently on an ancestral journey, so I'll be starting. So this being in these spaces are more for spiritual connection to my ancestors, and then once I get to Pakistan, where I was born and raised,
Hmm.
that's where really the journey will start to ground, and I'm really really excited and extremely terrified at the same time. Like I've done so much healing work, but I'm like wow, like going back to the same places where you experience some of your core wounds is like a whole different medicine to receive. You're like facing it head on. So that's the reason why I'm taking on this journey.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I guess one of the questions that people will be asking is, when did you start this journey? How did you get here? And of course, everything else in between.
Oh, dear God. Loaded question.
Maybe we'll start with when did you realize you wanted to start this journey?
Yeah, love that. So it was around, I would say, 3 to 4 years ago. I was with
Mhm.
my ex husband at the time. He and I remember like this pain body inside of me awakening, and I remember like saying out loud, "This isn't mine." Like I've done a lot of healing work, and I knew these were things that I have endured, and then it was like very clear knowing this is not mine. This is generational. And I could feel that coursing through my spine. And I remember feeling so angry and like mad at where I came from and like my culture, my tradition, my family. I just felt so much just anger. And I felt like this teenager that was just like throwing tantrums. I was pissed, And so that
Yeah.
kind of started my journey on doing a lot of generational healing and around money, around sex, around relationships, around success, around worthiness, around oh, I just get to matter because I exist on this planet. I don't actually need to do anything to matter, right? Inherently, I simply matter because I have a matter. I am an atoms put together that has created form. So it was a really long journey. And then I started to find spiritual gifts within me. So after the trauma kind of unraveled, it was like, wait, underneath all the like all these layers of blame and like healing that I needed, it was actually these like powerful magic and mystic that existed in my lineage that I didn't know about. Because I thought was like, oh, it's generational healing, but also there's so many gifts that we receive from our ancestors. And so
Mm.
especially when you're working with, matriarchy, and you see the feminine body. We're not just who we are from this lifetime. We're also our mother's wounds, and our grandmother and their mother, and we're also the gifts that they pass on to us. So now I started this journey actually in October. It was around October. I remember like sitting on a couch and like looking at like my neighbors. They're like they had this boat that's been sitting there and it's like filled with just trash. And I remember looking at that boat and looking at my partner and saying, I feel like that boat. I feel like that boat, like I belong in the water, I belong somewhere else, and I'm here in the wrong place. And I felt something inside of me, something ancient inside of me that wants to be awakened, that wants to just wake up. And it can't happen in Virginia near DC. It has to happen on my motherland. So long story short, I knew that was a journey, that I can't just do this work spiritually anymore. I need to be in certain places in order for me to awaken this part of me. So started the journey in October 29th, and it feels like a lifetime already.
Yeah,
Many
yeah.
deaths, many rebirths, and now I'm, 2 weeks out from being in on my motherland after 16 years. I haven't been back for 16 years, so it's a huge, huge deal for me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
That's
wow.
amazing.
Yeah. So when you're talking, I thought you've been doing this for like a long time. And when she said October, I was like, October of last year? I was like, oh, no, you just
This
said
year.
October
Yeah.
29. Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah, just a few months ago.
for everyone that doesn't know, I'm the one that actually did the screening.
Oh,
So
yeah,
Hannah
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
actually.
Which is good, right? I was
So
like, wow.
this
Yeah.
is brand new news to Hannah. I've
Yeah.
known for a little bit.
Yeah.
Rimsha and I had
Yeah.
the pleasure of having a lovely chat
Yeah.
about a month ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is all brand new information to Hannah.
Yeah. It's all
Which
of
is
us.
actually
Yeah.
why we're doing the interview
Yeah.
this way. It's like
Yeah.
I wanted Hannah to really get immersed
Yeah.
in the conversation, because when we first sat down to talk, it was like this connection, that this bond that was being formed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was a lot of things that you had said, like you just actually mentioned now. There's actually been studies done recently that shows generational trauma. And what I mean by that
Yeah.
is that what they've done is testing to see how far down the line does trauma actually go, and can it be passed down genetically.
Mhm,
And so
Ah,
far, what the research has shown is that yes,
mhm,
it
yeah.
actually can. And that, we don't realize that we actually take on our parents' trauma,
Very true.
mother and father.
Yeah.
Their DNA actually, it's like it absorbs that trauma and then it passes it on to their future children and grandchildren and great
Mm.
grandchildren. So, a lot of things that we kind of feel isn't right or isn't okay, it's our instinct because of past generational trauma and past, experiences that they have had,
Yeah.
that then gets
mhm.
passed on through, bloodline.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
it might not be something that you yourself have experienced, but you still have that feeling like, something's
Something's
not right.
wrong.
Like you said, you weren't going to find the answers to what you were looking for in the middle of America. You needed to get back to your roots. You needed to get back to, your ancestral,
Mhm.
history, to be able to get the answers that you're actually looking for, or find the awakening that you need, your spiritual awakening. So I absolutely love that, because it's actually been proven now by science that that's fact.
That's facts.
That's
Yeah.
what's already occurred. And
Uh,
we
Oh,
have to
yeah.
understand that as humans, and
yeah.
realize,
Mhm.
sometimes it might not be something that we physically went through. It could be something that our parents went through, grandparents, great grandparents as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, I mean the science is like now kind of catching up, and even then they
Yeah.
have very little surface level understanding.
Yeah.
When you study with the Native Americans and the shamans and
Yeah.
medicine men and women around the world, they've known this for over centuries. Like this is old wisdom.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
We've known that we are not just this like individual selfish being. We're all connected, and so
Yeah.
if we are connected, that means we not only have this ability to have this deep compassion, heart to heart, to
Yeah.
even though I don't have a bloodline connection to, we're all connected in that way.
Yeah.
And the web closest to us, of course it impacts us, and in fact so much so that our past self chose to come through this lineage because it has the same imprint as our past life. This is huge in like in Buddhism, that they talk about that your on what they call it sankhara, the imprint of by the time you died in your previous life, you're choosing your parents like, hey, you're gonna pass me the same exact imprint that I need in order for me to evolve in this lifetime. And so I'm going to choose through this certain lineage. And yes, trauma healing is such an important thing, but underneath all that layer, what I really want to emphasize on is that we're not just gifted traumas. We're also given beautiful gifts that are in our lineage that we can, that are part of this yin and yang magic that we have of like, yes,
Yeah.
the hardships and the wounds. And you've got some freaking power. We're powerhouses, all of us, with all our
Yeah.
lineages that we
Yeah.
can resource from. And in shamanism specifically, they say it's eighth generation back. That's the
Yeah.
biggest
How
imprint is
far?
like eight generation back is how far it goes. And also the healing work that you do on yourself now, it impacts eight generation forward. How cool is that?
That
We're
is so
literally
cool.
impacting we're
Yeah.
impacting our future generation by doing the work inside of us.
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's a quick question also because culturally, right, depending on kind of where you come in from, because even like from depending on who I speak to, like even in my family, we talk back about things that, even just like gifts, like you said, like things that not just trauma, but it's gifts. Like there's things that my grandfather even that he's you say passed on as I'm thinking about it now about like photography in my in that side, and it's crazy because it's like it just naturally comes to them, and it's like even
Yeah.
how seeing and it's crazy because I can see my cousin now, and even how he like moves and does all this stuff is just like his dad. It's just like how my grandpa was, and it was so crazy that you see that, and people say, "Oh, you look like them." Just like it, and I could totally see it, and it's crazy. Like because you're saying that, it just blows my mind now. I was like, "Oh my god, I never really noticed." I did. There was nothing that I could call that to. It was just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool." But you saying that, that's wow. I need to look into that more. I did not even think of that as
Yeah.
anything.
As I'm doing ancestral work, my face is changing. Like I'm looking different.
Yeah, yeah,
Like things are like my body is changing. Even when I was looking at myself, it's like things are changing, and I'm looking more like some like people. I looked always very different in my family. I'm the darkest one in my family. I don't have colored eyes like my other siblings do, and like I just have like very unique features that the rest of my five siblings don't. And it's interesting, like the more I go closer to my roots, the more I start to look like my mother. And it's so
yeah,
yeah, and her and I never used to look similar, where they used to make a joke that like I look adopted, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
the closer you get to your roots, actually like you're literally like changing yourself on a cellular level. You
yeah,
really, and that's why people who like, yes, you're genetically can get passed on cancer and other diseases,
yeah.
but you have the power to change it. You can change yourself on a subatomic level, and that's why meditations and these spiritual paths that are created in India and China and Burma, like they're so impactful because they believe you are not who you think you are. You can step into the
Mm,
version of you desire to be. And that version of you that's like, I don't want to have these diseases that were passed down. I don't want to have
mm,
this cancer or other, limiting beliefs, for example. You can change
mm,
that. Just it means what that means to me is that I am a sovereign being. That yes, I'm
mm,
connected to the entire web, but I am a sovereign being and I
mm,
can
mm,
choose
mm.
to live my life on my own terms. It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I was just going to ask before, you're in Bali right now. Where is next on your journey? What countries, what locations?
Yeah, I'm going to Thailand. But to be honest, Thailand is more of a pit stop. When I think of Thailand, I'm like, there's so much happening there. There's so much influence of, I would say, Buddhism, but there's just it's a very spiritual land. Bali alone is a very 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 spiritual land. That I knew that I just can't put myself. It's like you feel called to do all these things. Like want to do this and experience this, but
Yeah.
eventually you have to choose a path and commit to it. And my commitment is
Mm,
like I need to go to my ancestral lands, which is Pakistan, India, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, India being probably the most prominent. So those are the regions that I'm like are probably not the safest places for me on this planet, but are the places that I need to go
Mm.
to. So I'll be in Thailand for a week. I'm leaving this Saturday. So tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow I'll fly out and then to
Yep.
Pakistan in a week, which is really where the journey is going to get pretty wild, I imagine.
That's cool.
Oh, that is cool. Can't wait. Like hopefully you want to come back to us and we want to hear about your journey like in about a year from now because that's really cool, like, especially seeing you from the beginning. Really quickly, I know
Yeah.
you had mentioned earlier that you had a partner and then I seen that you're are you still with your partner again because we never met. I just turned to like are you still with your partner? Or is how is that working? Like you're even like, yeah, so how does that work?
The long
Yeah.
distance
Yeah, long distance,
relationship.
yeah.
I think that's what she's
Yeah.
just finding the
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. I'm just so
Yeah,
intrigued on
yeah,
everything you're
yeah.
doing. Yeah.
So you know what? All of this is connected. I mentioned my ex that I was with, right? I ended up marrying that man, and my ancestral wounds were part of it. That part of that. It was I was
Mm,
raised in such an abusive household, and it was like this is the man that I married was the man I truly felt I was worthy of. And it had nothing with who he was. It was what
mm,
I thought, this is what I'm worthy of. Yep. And you're
mhm.
not doing that consciously, right? Your brain is wired
Yeah,
for violent household. So that's you're like, yeah, that's just what I deserve. And you fall in love with what you deserve. You
Yeah.
truly like,
yeah.
even though it doesn't look right, you fall in love with what you deserve. So I married him, and very quickly, as I was on my ancestral healing journey, I realized like I don't know what's out there. I don't know what love looks like. I don't know what
Mm,
soulmates looks like. I don't know because I haven't seen healthy relationships. But
mm,
what I know is this can't be it. And in order for me to change that, I have to make the courageous choice in stepping away from the very thing that I'm comfortable with. And so I stepped away from that relationship completely, and very quickly my life started to completely change. Because when you make choice, the universe rewards you in such a big way. And the man that I ended up attracting, magnetizing in my world was like far from that. He is like the safest, most tender, most loving, most soft. I've never experienced softness like this.
Yeah.
A kind of man who can cry, who can express himself, who can say like this is how I'm feeling. Like being able to speak at a level that feels like, oh, such a tenderness to my heart that I never experienced before, and that I believe is because of that courageous choice that I made. It's really like saying that
yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
create that spaciousness in my life to do that. So long distance relationship, very challenging, very very challenging.
Mm,
It's not
mm,
easy.
mm,
Yeah.
What's happening? What the invitation what that is arriving here for both of us is both of us have abandonment wounds, and
mm,
um
Yeah.
and when my abandonment wound came through, I was excited because I knew it was one of my biggest core wounds. If I can overcome this constant belief that somebody is, that I love is going to abandon me, if I can
yeah,
Yeah.
be with that, like really be with it, it loses its power. And it did. So when I went
yeah.
to, you asked about my 10-day silent retreat. That's the only thing that I worked on. Those 10 days, no phone access,
Yeah.
no eye contact. You're not talking. You're meditating for 11 plus hours, and all I did was
Mm,
sit with that motherhood wound of like being abandoned in some of the darkest times in my life as a child.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
so that wound like lost its power, where when there was moments of like, oh, I need my partner there for me and I need him to hold space for me and blah blah blah. It was so cool to see after this experience of my vipassana meditation that it since it lost its power, I didn't feel abandoned. I was able to like return back to myself and hold space for myself and show up for myself. But he couldn't do that. He's in the military. He
Mm,
hasn't really walked his healing path yet. And so when that abandonment wound that has been very alive since I've been gone, where he's cried to me like, you're gone, you're not here. You're not here. It's like I can hear that 13-year-old boy inside of him saying, like, you're not
mm,
here. Don't think most of us know what interdependent relationships look like. We know what codependent looks like. We know the ones that are like completely enmeshed of like soulmate, like he
Yeah.
completes me and I complete him.
yeah.
Like these are the kind of relationships we know. But interdependence requires us to be completely and unconditionally in love with each other, knowing that no matter what that person does, I can set my boundaries and let that person go and still keep my love for them. That I can
Yeah.
still love myself no matter what. And that is, I think, one of the hardest thing to do is knowing that I can choose to live my life with one person and not be attached to that reality of that person, because you don't know them.
Yeah.
You'll never know that man, and you'll never know your wife. You'll never know that person, because you'll only know the projection of who that person is, and that's
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
fall in love with, the projection of
Yeah.
what you believe that person to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so, so true. And that is actually something that you can learn how to do in a relationship. It's not something
Yes.
that you have to end a relationship to
For yeah.
find somebody that
Yeah.
knows how to deal with it.
Yeah.
My husband and I both have had we both like I'm in psychology because of that.
Yeah.
That's one of the sort of topics that I touch on with my psychologist is my
Yeah.
abandonment issues from my biological father leaving
Mm-hmm.
and wanting nothing to do with me. You know, like he just stopped showing up one day and it took me years. I'm 35, well, 36 years old now.
She's young. There you go.
It was my
Yeah.
birthday like a couple of weeks
Yeah, yeah,
ago,
yeah.
so my brain still goes 35.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I made a sad dog sound.
You You did. You did. Yeah.
Apologies, everyone.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm 36 now, and that's something that I've actually only recognized a year ago.
Yeah.
Was my abandonment wounds, was
Yeah.
the fact that my husband had them as well. You know,
Mm.
from his own childhood trauma
Mhm.
and things that happened from his childhood.
Mhm.
So it was something that we, you know, I went to psychology.
Yeah.
I had to learn sort of techniques and realize, okay, we weren't put on this planet to make each other happy. We weren't put on
Mhm.
this planet to find each other specifically and be
Mhm.
able to complete each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not what our relationship is about. We have our individual lives
Mhm.
and we come together.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
And that was one thing that, you know, we had to learn, we had to understand, but it took us having to ask for help. It took, you know, us having to realize what we were actually going through because we didn't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, it was one day we had an argument and I like hopped out of the car and I was like, fuck off, go home.
Yeah.
And he drove off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe he drove off. I'm the one that got out of the car.
Yeah.
I'm the one that told him to fuck off.
Mhm,
But yet
mhm.
I'm the one that sat there going, he abandoned me. He left me here. It's like, what? I'm a
Mhm, mhm.
freaking adult. I was able to get home perfectly fine. It was in the middle of the day, so it's not
Yeah.
like anyone needs to freak out. It wasn't, you know, middle of the night,
Yeah.
left in the middle of the streets or anything like that. No,
Yeah.
we were literally around the corner from our house.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was completely safe. I was
Yeah, yeah.
completely fine. But my brain went, he
Yes.
abandoned me. He doesn't love me.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Yeah.
I thought this guy was my soulmate and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
and he could do something like that to me.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, hold on, no, that's my problem.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. I get that.
It's not him.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
So let me go work on that.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah,
me go
you know what is so
self-love.
interesting? We like create scenarios. We like unconsciously and sometimes consciously create the fights to awaken that wound that's there, because the wound
Yes.
wants to be healed. The wounds want to be free to self.
Yeah.
So we do that, like you said. I think how you said it was so perfect. Like, I created the abandonment. I asked him to leave. I wanted to
Yeah.
feel
Correct.
that wound.
Yep.
I
Yep. Yep.
wanted
Yep.
to feel that pain
Exactly.
of my father leaving me as a young kid, that wound that's so alive in my body. So I created the situation to let him know, no, leave me so I can feel this. And
So
then realize
exactly.
I'm the one creating it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was that I truly feel like that's actually exactly what happened. It's
Yeah.
like my body, my soul was ready to deal with it at that
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah.
So it could go through that.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's really just the whole self-awareness, because there's some people that will happen and sit on it and still blame
Oh,
out,
yeah.
But I'm glad
Yeah.
that like now, like I think in everybody's healing, because I'm sure like maybe 15 years ago, if that happened, it would have been a different scenario. But now that you've gone
Yes.
through and healed and like been able to, so that's good. That's good. Self-awareness,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. No, it was
Self-awareness.
one of those things that I'm so grateful that it
Yeah.
happened when it happened, the day that it
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
you know, because I was
Wow.
able to really learn from it, to
Mm.
actually understand, hold on, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah.
You know, when I got home and he turned around and said to me, you're the one that jumped out of the car. You're the one that screamed at me, told me to fuck off and
Yeah.
to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I did exactly what you asked of me. So
Yeah.
how are you still upset at me?
Yeah.
And I had to sit there going,
Oh yeah.
I'm being logical. What is this?
Logic checks
Right?
out.
Yeah.
I'm not with you for you to be logical. Come on.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
but it really took that.
Yeah.
And you know, and I've said this to Hannah before, it's like
Yeah.
my husband and I, before we ever started dating, we had crossed paths multiple times
Yeah.
without actually ever meeting each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Oh, interesting.
it's like we actually, once we got together, we realized, like, just through conversations and even photos. There's a photo of me hanging out with my girlfriends, and he's, you know, from 5-6 years before that, and he's like up 2 steps behind me with a group of his friends.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Whoa.
We were
Yeah.
all in the same location at the same time throughout the years,
Yeah.
and we never actually met each other.
Yeah.
But
That's wild.
and to me, it was like the universe didn't want us to meet each other at
Yeah.
that point in
Yeah.
time because we wouldn't have been able to make it work. We met each other at a point in time where the universe knew that we could align and knew that we could grow together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I trusted that. You
Yeah.
know, we've spoken a little bit about it on the podcast, just like the dynamic of how my relationship sort of evolved. You know, me thinking,
Yeah.
oh no, he's a bit too quiet in the beginning. This
Yeah.
isn't going to work out. I'm vivacious. I'm loud. I'm proud. I'm, you know,
Yeah.
everything. I'm the polar opposite to him. He's
Yeah.
quiet and mellow and chill, and I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah.
Opposites
Which,
attracts and it works. It's a
yeah.
balance.
Exactly, but that's the sort of stuff that I never realized. Like, he was the first tradie that I ever dated. Before that, I only ever dated business people in suits, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so it was that involvement of my life, and that's
Yeah.
sort of what I kind of get from your journey. It's like you're just
Correct.
going through that journey now of finding what fits for you, finding what works for you, what, you know, all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
where I just love that. Like, I think everyone needs to, even if you've got a partner, even if you've got, you know,
A friend.
a husband, wife, whatever, I think you still need to go through your own journey,
Yeah.
your own
Yeah.
path to understand truly how you feel. And my husband and I
Yeah.
have given each other that leeway,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
you
love
know,
that.
where we can go and do our separate thing
Yeah.
and just check in on each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
celebrate your relationship with him. That sounds so just peaceful and freeing.
yeah. But in the beginning, it was very much like if we were apart, it was like, oh, I miss you so much. I miss you so
Yeah.
much. Oh
Yeah.
my God, what am I going to do if you're not home?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now if we're gone, it's like, how was your day? How,
Yeah.
like, now we can have a conversation. Now it's not just the,
Mhm.
oh my God, I want to go home. I feel sick. I want to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
back. I just want to go back home and get a cuddle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
fuck, I don't give him a freaking cuddle when I am home.
God.
Do you get what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
why is it when I'm away, I have this abandonment, like this attachment
Yeah. Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
of I
Mhm.
feel like I'm not me
Mm.
without him,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and
Yeah.
it's that journey of having to grow to realize, hold on, you're an individual, like you are individually you are not your
Yeah.
partner.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Yeah.
You're allowing your partner
Yeah.
to do right now and grow and heal himself so he can actually move forward in his own journey.
Yeah.
Because that's
Oh,
one thing
yeah.
that I don't think he's capable of doing right now, especially if he's, you know, getting overly emotional at the fact that he's alone. It's like he has to go through this on his own to really understand that he's has to make himself happy.
Yeah.
You weren't put on this earth to make him happy. You weren't put on this earth to be stuck by his side 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I feel like you touched on a really important point of the individual journey. And that individual journey is forever, forever,
Yeah. Yep.
forever. That never stops because he's going to, like, your husband is going to constantly evolve and you're going to
Yep.
evolve. And
Yeah.
and then if there's children and this, like, we are never, there's never going to be a point where we just become stagnant and do nothing. And that's because
Yeah.
the stagnancy is only there because you've stopped allowing yourself to evolve. But
Yeah.
one of the things in the healing world is always like, God, I'm sick of healing. But it's because we have this view of healing as if it's like a purge or like I need to like
Yeah.
do this intense thing. healing
Yeah.
this is just life, babe. Like you are dying and being rebirthed every second of your moment.
Yeah.
Like if you think about the skin and what is happening with your skin, like you have more dead cells than alive. Like they're dying
Yep.
and recreating, dying and recreating. I mean, as women, we are bleeding every single month. That we're going
Yeah.
through those journey of death and rebirth. So there is, and so many rites of passages we go through. So remembering that everything outside of us is just a compass for us to continue to evolve for ourselves individually. That's the only thing we can really, really do. I
Yeah.
mean, even as a little kid, I remember like wanting to change the world and do this and all these big dreams to like heal the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, want to see
Yeah.
the world as this peaceful place. And like,
Yeah. We're gonna cure cancer. We're gonna cure all
what it
illnesses. We're gonna save
is,
the planet. We're gonna yeah.
the only
I think
way you can do is inside the world inside of you. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
it.
correct, correct. Yeah. Do you
And
question, do you feel that in
yeah.
this journey that you're going through now, is there kind of like a specific goals you have? Like it doesn't have to be like that's the end goal, but it's like let's say in a year's
Mm,
time, what do you because I know you said eventually you're gonna go back to, your homeland, Pakistan. Like what is it that you want to get once you
mm.
get there? Or is it more just not
Yeah.
having any expectations? It's just more of just letting let your journey lead you to where it needs to be.
Wow, thank you for that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a documentary. So that was
Oh,
not in
wow.
the books. And I launched my first book 2 weeks ago. And
Mhm.
once that was launched, I was like, I'm not writing again. This was such a long, painful process. And the moment I booked my flight to Pakistan, it was like this direct, I don't like the word download in this. It was like a knowing, like there's no other way but to write my second book and to do this documentary. And this is specifically for women of color around the world.
Yeah.
Mm.
This is
I love that.
specifically for immigrants, for indigenous women. This is for Asian women, like, and the documentary, again, like I have a seed that's planted, but I don't know how that's going to unravel, and I know the journey itself will unravel on its own. But the journey for me right now, what it looks like is to return back to the places where I mean really like facing my demons like head on, and like
Mm.
literally going to all those places where I went through that trauma and finding beauty. The journey is to find beauty in the darkness. And I think the documentary is going to something about like a woman's journey back into the shadows or something like that. I think we have this
Ah,
like view of darkness and shadows. We have this idea of it that it's so like demonic or like not good. Oh,
mm.
just be light and love, just be happy and
Yeah.
love and all the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the intention is to show especially the feminine on this planet, and especially Asian women, is that you can go back in the places where you were the most wounded and find empowerment there. So it's an empowerment journey, and to find in our
Mm.
lineage, in our ancestral lineage, the wisdom that's there so that we can individually step into leadership, whatever that leadership looks like. So you doing this podcast is your way of stepping into your leadership and doing it in a way that empowers every soul that touches in your life. So you're speaking from
Ah,
that place of empowerment. So that's the goal. It will change and evolve.
of course,
I'm
yeah,
Yeah.
not a filmmaker. I'm
yeah.
not a documentary maker. I'm about to figure out how to do that in like 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's the vision.
Yeah. I you had mentioned in your application that you were afraid of the world, that you thought the world was unsafe. How did
Yeah.
you overcome that to even begin the journey to travel and
Oof.
experience the world? I
Wow.
know that like you can give yourself crippling anxiety
Yeah,
from
true.
worrying about things. So,
Mm.
when I read your application, I saw that my brain kind of went to, "Oh my god, I wonder how do you overcome that? How do you actually
Yeah,
go from the world is unsafe, it's a dangerous place,
yeah,
it's
to travel.
to all right, I'm going out there on my own."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for asking that question because I know I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
In my nervous system and like deepest parts of me believed, like truly believed, this world is horrifically dangerous and
Mm.
horrifically violent. That the moment I will step outside, I will be raped, murdered, killed, treated like
Yeah.
shit. I mean, crippling fear of existing in this body. Like so much so that I was like totally checked out. Like if I can just like leave my body and exist on this planet and roam around, like I'll be safe doing that. Like that
Yeah.
feels
Mm,
a lot safer. So I was so checked out of this body, and which is, the reason why I went into this pleasure work, and what I'm doing now is to help women come back into their bodies and create that safety within themselves. And
mm,
that reason is because it wasn't just like, oh, the world is not safe. I felt it in every part of my being. I had this crippling fear. So when I realized that I had such a fear that it's not going to allow me to, that I can't live with this fear. I mean, I didn't want to exist. It was so bad
Yeah.
that I'm like, I don't want to exist. I'm going to school. You guys, I would walk to my school, my elementary school, and I'm petrified of my life every day. Like it's exhausting to live in that
I bet,
fear.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I bet, yeah.
And I realized very early on that the fastest, most efficient way to overcome and penetrate that energy, that block in our bodies of that fear, is actually to go right through it, to cut through the energy. And so I got my passport. I became a citizen when I was 18 years old, and at the moment I got my passport, I booked a flight to Nepal, and I've been traveling since then. So I left immediately. I knew that I just can't live in this fear anymore. I mean, you guys, I was so petrified of this human experience. I wanted to just die and be a ghost. It was my dream to be a ghost. Like all I want to do is to experience this world
Mm,
as a spirit. So I was like totally checked out in my
I
head.
hear you.
And it's so funny to think back. Like I was specifically terrified of men. And I was in the most masculine industry you can think of. I was an engineer, then I became a US Marine Corps officer. Like I was always
Yeah.
around men. So I was like committed to meeting the very thing that I was absolutely fucking terrified of. And so leaving to Nepal, which has very similar
Yeah.
imprint as Pakistan and India, oh my gosh, you guys. And I was attracting men that were like showing me that, yep, yeah, you're right. You were always right. The world is not safe. I'm not going to be a safe man to you. I
Yeah.
remember like this one time, like I was in a hostel, my roommate
Mhm.
left. She was from Brazil, and this man followed me, and he had like the key to the room, and he was trying to get into my room, and I locked myself in the bathroom, and I started to like turn on all the taps, and I'm like on the floor naked and like praying to God, please let me die here because I don't know. And he's like trying to like call my name. He's like, I know you're here. Really fucking terrifying for an 18-year-old woman. And like I
I
was
bet,
I
yeah.
mean, like I was literally living my nightmare. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
honestly, like now I can walk around this world knowing that, of course, on a tangible level, on a logistical level, this world isn't the safest for women. I'm
Mm,
a lot safer if I'm with a man. And I can know that I have the ability to protect myself, and I have this power inside of me that allows me to not magnetize violence because I've overcome that fear. This is
I
a
love that.
constant work. Every time I'm leaving my house, I'm like, I am choosing courage over my fear. And then I'm good. Then I'm attracting people where I can, even yesterday I was like inside somebody else's home and like eating food with them, talking to them, hugging them, and like and then I realized and I remind myself the reason why I choose courage is because of these moments like this, that I can connect with humanity
I
and
Yeah.
heart
love
to heart. And
that.
it's worth
Yeah.
it. And it's
Yeah, yeah,
worth it.
yeah.
Every day it's worth it.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And I know, like, obviously we've been talking a lot about in regards to relationship, whether it's relationship with a partner, friendship, and just, relationship with the world. But I know you're also a holistic intimacy coach. So is there a way that we can kind of share with us a little bit what that is so we can, let people know exactly what you do in
Yes.
that sense? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. It's like my favorite thing in the world.
Really?
accessing
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
accessing my cervix, my vaginal canal,
Mm,
and like my depth in that way was most definitely the most powerful journey I've been on. And it made me realize why religions have suppressed women in the way they have, because it's effective. You want to break a woman, let her know that her pleasure is not her source of power. Let her know that it's a sin to touch herself. Let her know that
mm,
the only way she can seek pleasure is through a man, that somebody else
mm,
is in charge of her pleasure, that somebody else is in charge of your pleasure. And you
mm.
hear that from women. Even my girlfriend, they'll say like, oh, I only date this man because he knows where the clitoris is. Gosh, he knows how to make me feel good. But it's like, but do you know how to make yourself feel good?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know, do you
yeah.
have
Yes.
access Do you own pussy? Do you have a way to also communicate to yourself? Do you know
I
what
Yeah.
feel
part of you
bad for women
leads your
like that.
sexuality? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
do.
keep going. Yeah. No,
You're
I know.
actually missing out on just life.
Yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yes.
if you can't make, if you literally cannot make yourself happy in that sense,
Sorry.
Yeah.
then really you shouldn't be relying on a man to make you happy in that sense.
Yeah, because you won't. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't even know yourself.
But they're
Yeah.
taught, right?
Yeah. Correct.
But this is a belief. This is what we're taught for thousands of years, that this is one inherently a sin. You need to be a certain way, and you can't touch yourself, you can't explore yourself. And even in the in meditation world and yoga world, like there's still so much of that conditioning that we forget that the woman's source of creation is through her.
Mhm.
You don't just create life. We can
Yeah.
create
Mhm.
businesses, we can create ideas, we can create I mean, like, I think about menopause. So my interest is working with women who are in more in their 30s and 40s, because I'm so
Mhm.
turned on by them. Because women
Mhm.
in their 20s and I'm in my 20s, right? It's like, where is still maiden? We still have not unlocked these parts of ourselves that only aging can bring. So, like, when you can
Yeah.
connect to your bleeds, you can connect to your bleed, you can connect with your luteal cycle, connect with your follicular cycle, you can understand how what is happening with you when you're ovulating. Then you're not using those things to externalize the experience. You can use those things to internalize here, and actually source this as a way of creation. We're here to create. One thing all religions have it right is that women are birthed to create. But what they have it wrong is that, oh, they need to get married at the age of 14 or like fucking 21 and
Yeah.
create a
Yeah.
life. No, 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 no. You can create consciousness of projects and business. And in fact, like, wealth codes are exist in our womb, in our yoni, So it's so this yeah this top I can go on and on. We might have
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
episode on this. It's,
No, no,
it's
we could.
something
Yeah.
that
No,
I'm
we could.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
so passionate about. Like, it really is like, it's it's how can you come back home to the deepest part of you, to the part of you
Yeah.
that actually no men have, which is the black hole, which is the creation portal, which is souls that want to incarnate through you. You become the goddess for them. These are it's such as
Mhm.
our pleasure is so sacred. And then what happens with pleasure? What is happening in your brain? When you're
Yeah.
accessing the pleasure within, it's so powerful. I mean, we have twice as more nerves in our this small part of our body than most men do. That means
Yeah.
we have
Mhm.
deeper access to experience life in a deeper way. That's why there are most women were meant to be the medicine women, and women are meant to be the leaders, because we have deeper senses. Our sensitivities actually are what allows us to be the leaders on this planet. We're not there yet, clearly. We're not there
Yeah.
yet, but that experience can start within all of us, including, I mean, I love how you said, like, your pleasure, and you
Mhm.
feel like
Mm.
sad for women who don't, because you've accessed what happens within you when you access your pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the one thing that's always actually made me laugh, is like listening to my girlfriends talk about partners and talk
Mm-mm.
about what they didn't do right. And in my head, I'm like, why didn't you just say
Say
that?
something.
Like,
Yeah.
why don't you
Yeah.
just tell them what you want, how you like it,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
feels
Yeah. Yeah.
good, what doesn't?
Just to
It
debrief.
has to be.
Just give-
No, but
yeah. Yeah.
even when you're in the
Yeah.
moment, communication
Yeah.
is so
Correct.
important.
Yeah.
It is so important. Can you imagine? I can't. My God, this is probably
I love
TMI,
it.
but I can't imagine there being with my husband and there just be like silence in the room.
Yeah. It's
No,
like,
like we are always communicating. We're
yeah.
talking about different
Yeah.
positions, or yeah, that feels good. Oh no, stop!
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
let's try
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that communication.
Yeah.
It's you
Oh,
But
have
yeah.
I think,
to
yeah.
be able to understand it. And I wouldn't know what I liked had I not explored my own body.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But do you think, I mean, I guess this is a question for both of you. Do you feel, because like you said, in religion or in society, we're not supposed to talk about, sex because it's just, you cannot. So I think when we enter that space, Because I mean, again, this is also maybe TMI, but when I entered that space, I had no fucking idea. I was just like, oh, well, per what I
Yeah.
think it is, this is how it
Yeah.
is. So it's just like because we're not
Yeah.
educated on it as well, you just think like, well,
No.
in the movies, they said the dudes are supposed to do that, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
communication is not there. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me
No,
personally,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
Like I've
yeah,
always been an open communicator when it comes to my
yeah,
Mhm.
sex life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've all like every partner that I've ever had, it's been that very open communication where I'm
yeah,
like, yes, no,
yeah.
please, more, less.
Yeah, but no, I know, but that's personally for you. But I was like, do you think
Yeah.
why others, especially like I said, like and for me,
Mm.
we weren't allowed to talk about that. So
No,
it's
and
just yeah,
that's what I
yeah,
mean. It's like
yeah,
I'm sure it's quite common,
yeah, yeah,
but for
correct.
me personally,
Yeah,
religion didn't have a factor in that because
yeah,
I've always viewed religion as this thing that breaks people apart.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't have to be religion, but
You
even
know,
just your family, like you just have that dynamic that you don't talk about it. You know,
no,
we just
I've
Yeah.
never cared.
no, no, I'm just saying yeah. I just feel like I mean, I never, hugging was not even a thing for us. So that's
It's
what I'm
not like
saying.
I've never.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
not starting a conversation with my mum about my sex.
No, of course not. I hope
I
not.
am
Not
not
kidding.
like, Mum, give me tips.
Yeah,
Fuck no.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
like, for example, like, I've even had partners that have gotten, and I'm not partners, what am I saying? Let me rewind. I've had girlfriends that have come to me and they're like, I caught my partner cheating. I'm like, oh my God, what did he do? He was watching porn.
Mm.
And my head goes to, was that like, why are you guys not watching it together and
Correct,
experimenting and
correct.
exploring?
Yes.
That's my in
Mhm.
my head, but they're so
Yeah.
upset about the
Mm,
fact that their partner was watching somebody else and getting off to it.
mm, mm,
I'm like,
mm.
grow the fuck up. Because even if you don't know about it, it's still happening.
Yeah. More than
And
Yeah.
likely.
maybe you
Yeah.
should try it. Watch some porn, watch some guys. I don't care what you want to do, but you need to work.
Explore.
You need to explore and
Mm,
find out what
mm.
It just yeah.
I
I
relate.
think
That's
I,
again.
I relate more. I relate more with what you were sharing, like similar to you. Like I had no, I walked into my own bedroom. It's like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I touch myself
Mhm,
where? What does that mean? What is an orgasm? Like I had no knowledge. And similar to you, was like no hugging, no intimacy within family, and like God forbid you mention the word sex, you are getting shunned from family.
yeah, you're like,
And
"Dun, dun, dun." Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also the freeze, right? The freeze and fawning is like a very
yeah,
common thing for most women. And I celebrate the shit out of you for being
yeah,
such a communicator and like knowing what you want and be
Mm,
able to ask, because most of us are not like that, including myself. I wasn't, being able to say to somebody no took me years of work,
yeah,
mhm,
years and
mhm.
years of work to learn how to not be in freeze. And even recently, I think I had somebody like put their head on my lap and my body like went into freeze. It was like, why are
Wow.
you
Yeah.
laying on my, and I couldn't, and I felt so much shame around. I've done so much of my fucking work and I'm still can't tell him that this makes me uncomfortable. Why are you laying on my lap? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's how, and so I can't imagine, women who are like, you're naked and you're intimate and you're like the guy, and
mm,
you're like don't know how to say like this doesn't feel good, this doesn't feel safe, and not knowing their own pleasure, like, and again, like I have a whole, and of course with the work that I've done, learned a lot about pornography. It's like vibrators, pornography, it's probably not the way you want to go either. What you want to do, what you really is the way to do, is to drop into your pussy and connect with sensations. Because everything is about
yeah,
sensations. You can experience like anal orgasms or cervical orgasms and all sorts of deeper levels of pleasure until you can know how to access the pleasure within yourself by bringing breath, bringing sound, bringing movement, and using
Mm,
sacred tools like crystal dildo rather than vibrators. Because I was like my ex that I told you about gifted me a vibrator, and I thought, oh my gosh, he is the best partner in the world. I'm experiencing orgasm for the first time in my life, and I got addicted to this fast
yeah,
rubbing thing, and it's like, and what it did was it took away all my senses. It took, I mean,
mm.
the body, that part of you becomes addicted to, oh well, I need to
exactly,
come faster because my partner is coming faster, and that
yeah,
is not like a us thing. This is the whole world believes, well, men are coming faster. I must now work on doing the same. So now we have created a whole industry around making women come faster when we actually need at least scientifically proven 40 to 50 minutes of pure foreplay. And that could be like you cooking and your partner is flirting with you, or like him texting
Yeah.
you all day long. Like foreplay is so necessary for women to get like her heart to open up. Like we don't talk enough about the
Yeah.
pussy's connection to the heart, of like the heart being the gateway to the deeper levels of pleasure. So this is why I've been so committed to the work, as women coming to my space to like, I've never experienced it, this and this, and they're imagining that I'm gonna like tell them like step by step what you're gonna do, but really we're dropping into the body to experience these tiny little sense of pleasure. Like there's a light flickering. Oh, I can feel pleasure in my nipples. Okay, can I feel pleasure in my toes? How can I expand that pleasure? So you're learning how to use sexual energy. And
Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with us through this episode of the Relatable Bitches podcast. We had some unexpected tech issues with our guest, and unfortunately, the ending didn't record properly. We appreciate your understanding and patience. Rimsha works with couples and individuals. Please reach out to her if you're looking for a better connection with your partner, a better connection to yourself, or you just want to know more about this incredible human being. You can find out more about Rimsha by following her on her social media, which is linked below. We hope you enjoyed our discussion today, even with the hiccups.
Alrighty, and that wraps up another episode.
Sorry,
Stop
I
it!
keep forgetting to say goodbye to her.
Oh my god! Every fucking week.
Very true, though. See how raw
my
is that?
God.
That's true. Huh? Every week. It is
Every week, I go to say the outro and try and say goodbye to you, beautiful, amazing listeners, and Heinna just doesn't like you guys.
No,
She wants nothing to do
I
with
want
you.
to make sure it renders. Because my brain is always like, I want to make sure I stop. I want to make sure it renders. That's where
Yep.
I'm at. But yes, thank you.
Yes, we whenever we decide to actually, this might be a Christmas episode, it might
Yeah.
be a fresh in the new year episode, whatever it is. We hope you have a lovely holiday break, whatever
Yes.
you celebrate. I was
Yeah.
thinking there's more than just Christmas coming up, so
Yeah.
whatever you celebrate, happy holidays, happy new year, and we will see you next year.
And that wraps up another episode of the Relatable Bitches podcast. We hope you enjoyed our chat today and found something that's resonated with you.
If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us reach more relatable bitches like you.
And remember, you can connect with us on social media. All links are in the description.
Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep it real and stay relatable.